What's going on, Summoners? Welcome back to another Pro Guides video. I'm Kangas, and today we're discussing counter picks to some of the more OP and popular champions on patch 11.14. We'll go over the runes, builds, and playstyles to effectively counter specific matchups so that the next time you run into one of these characters, you will have the knowledge and confidence to bully your opponents. So hit that sub button, and let's get into it. So we'll start things off with Sett as a counter to Warwick. Sett's only goal as a top laner is to run in and fight. He hits hard in trades and sustains up a lot of the damage after with his passive. In the current carry-heavy top lane meta, his ability to go toe-to-toe and smash other bruisers makes him a top-tier pick. And none of the other popular picks have the damage to take him down in one go, nor do they have the sustain to outlast him over time. But Warwick actually outdoes Sett in both regards. Let's examine trading patterns to understand why. Most champions have to trade around their cooldowns. Cooldowns up means a bigger burst of damage after all. Sett directly counters bursty trades with his W, because if you deal too much damage to him too fast, he gets a fully stacked W, which means that he gets a huge true blop of true damage all in your face. But since Warwick's only offensive basic ability is Q, and most of his trades come from his passive and auto attacks, you never really do enough burst damage to give Sett a fat W. On top of that, if you hold your Q, you can actually use it to go through Sett and dodge his W altogether. And both champs do a lot of damage over time in extended trades, but with Sett having limited hard CC and no execute, he doesn't have any way to finish Warwick off in a slap fight. For your items in this lane, you'll start with Doran's Blade and then build into a Divine Sunderer. After that, go ahead and invest into a Bramble Vest, and for boots you want Steel Caps, then go for a Titanic Hydra, Sterix Gauge, upgrade the Bramble into Thornmail, and then buy a Spirit Visage. And the second top lane matchup that we'll cover is Nasus. Like we said in our must-ban video for this patch, the issue with Nasus is that you have to shut him down early and keep him down all game long. Most champs are either too weak early to hinder him when he's vulnerable, or fall off too fast and eventually Nasus will outscale them. But with Cassiopeia, you can keep him on lock from load screen till his Nexus explodes. Ranged bullying in lane makes it really hard for him to farm. So your goal here is to force him to go for the last hits with his E, since him doing that will just mean that he's shoving the wave into your turret, further denying Q stacks. One big problem that most other champions have is that even with a 20 or 30 CS gap, once Nasus has his ult and Sheen, he usually still wins the 1v1. But with Cassiopeia, you'll easily be able to hit him out with his movement speed from Q and slow with your W. A desperate Nasus may even try to flash wither you, but that's why you take Phase Rush. You back all the way up to your tower and then just wait out his ultimate. Once he loses it, he's got no chance of ever beating you in a fight. Generally, AP champs are bad at dealing with bruisers and juggernauts, but that's because they are tankier targets, and if they survive a mage's opening burst, they usually just win the extended fight after. But Cass is a hyperscaling, DPS-focused mage, so as long as you don't give Nasus 20 minutes to farm a side lane, you will always be able to 1v1 him. For your items in this lane, you'll start Doran's Ring, and then instead of rushing straight for a full item, you'll grab a few components. On your first back, pick up a Tear, then Lost Chapter, and finally grab an Oblivion Orb. You'll then finally upgrade your Chapter into Liandry's and Tear into Archangel Staff, which is hopefully a Seraph's Embrace at this point. Next up, go for Void Staff, Rylai's, and Rabadon's. If the rest of your team doesn't have Grievous already, upgrade your orb into Morello, but if they have it covered already, you can actually sell the orb and go for a Cosmic Drive or Zonia's instead. You're really just going for the orb for laning phase. Now looking into the jungle next, our first matchup is Karthus versus Nocturne. Now before we get into it, I need to make a little disclaimer. There isn't a true counter to Nocturne right now. I'd say he's one of the most dominant picks in League's recent history. There's been plenty of god tier picks on other patches, but usually even the best champions on a patch have at least one or two matchups that they struggle in. But even in his worst matchups, Nocturne is still pushing a 52% win rate. So no matter what you're playing, you'll need to play a pretty clean game if you want to beat him. So if you want to polish up your jungle skills, we got your back, whether it's learning optimal routes, figuring out which lanes are best to target, or even learning the macro side of things like establishing vision control and securing objectives. Our top tier coaches at ProGuides.com would be more than happy to help you out. They're available on call 24/7, so no matter what time it is, you should at least head over and check it out. But with that aside, let's talk about this matchup. In any Karthus matchup, you're not playing to force fights. You're a hyperscaling team fight nuke, so you want to farm up and stay safe. Nocturne's less aggressive early game gives you more breathing space than most other meta champs. He'll also be running exhaust, so if he ever does fight you, you should be able to at least trade 1 for 1, if not go 1 for 0. This is especially useful post 6 where his ult allows him to reach you no matter what you do. In teamfights, your ultimate target is to get Nocturne to target you over the rest of your team. If he does, you'll just fight out the rest of the team fight from your passive. But in the event that he does dive your backline, you'll just throw yourself at the rest of his team. Your goal here is to make it impossible for them to follow up on his dive without taking massive damage from wading through your Defile and your Skittles. For your items, start off with Hail Blade, and then build into Liandry's and Sork Shoes. Usually we say go more damage over safety, but in this matchup, where he's guaranteed to get on you with his ultimate, go for Zhonya's here when your exhaust is down. Then build into Void Staff and Rabadon's Death Cap. Your last item should be Demonic Embrace, unless your team doesn't have Grievous Wounds, in which case you can go Morellonomicon instead. Now the second jungler that we'll cover is Shaco. Like Nocturne, there aren't a lot of great picks that you can make here, so instead of an insta-win hard counter, we got a skill matchup in Taliyah. With her passive movement speed, Taliyah can get around the map fast and provide a ton of early pressure. Her first couple of clears are pretty slow, but once you get some items and levels, she can practically insta-clear camps. So while you're both ganking a ton, you'll also have the level advantage over Shaco as long as you're pathing well. If Shaco ever jumps on you, you can easily knock him away with your W. And later in the game, once you got a few items done, your combo doesn't just disengage him, because he's squishy enough that you can completely one-shot him instead of him one-shotting you. Oh, and one more little nice win in this matchup is that you can actually nuke his boxes with your Q before they have a chance to arm. Now for your items, you'll go Hailblade and then grab Sork Shoes and a Dark Seal. Build that into a Ludens, and if the game's going well, upgrade your seal into Mejai's. After that, go for Zhonya's, Void Staff, and Rabadon's. If you start losing stacks in your Dark Seal or just never upgrade to Mejai's in the first place, your last item can be Cosmic Drive or Horizon Focus. Next up, let's look at Gwen as a pick into Zhao. Zhen has become one of the most popular champs in the current jungle meta because he's got solid ganks, insanely strong dueling, and he's super easy to play. All that means that pretty much anybody can pick him up and use him to rake in the LP. Now Gwen may not have as much gank pressure, but she can definitely match Zhao in the dueling aspect. Now that's not to say that you just run at Zhao and fight him whenever you see him. In the first few levels he will beat you in 1v1s, but as long as you play around strong lanes, you can actually win those 2v2s and 3v3 skirmishes around Scuttle Crabs. As you pick up items and levels, your 1v1 strength also goes up, and once you have your ultimate, you can start looking to go toe-to-toe with him. Once you finish your 2-item plus Boots core, he will never be able to take you on again. For your build, you'll start with Ember Knife and then rush into a Gnasher's Tooth, and once that's done, go for Riftmaker and Plated Steel Caps. Generally, you'll go Cosmic Drive and then Zhonya's Hourglass, and then finish things off with a Rabadon's, but if you need Void Staff, you can drop either Cosmic or Zhonya's for that instead. And the last jungle matchup we need to talk about is Olaf versus Fiddlesticks. Yeah, we got a lot of jungle matchups this week, but hey, that's just the meta. Fiddle has been an insanely strong pick even before preseason 11 began. His ult gives him obscenely strong team fighting and can single-handedly turn a game around. So to keep Fiddle down, you have to actively work to deny him camps and then kill him at any chance you get. As Olaf, you are perfectly suited for just that. Fiddle has a fast clear, but Olaf's is just as strong. After you clear through your jungle, your first goal will be to invade Fiddle and get wards down so that you can track his pathing. Anytime his camps come up, you'll invade and look to take them away, and better yet, fight Fiddle if you can find him. If he fears you, you may still be able to catch up to him if you can land an axe. Post 6, invading Fiddle, as most champs, is suicide. If he sees you doing a camp, all he has to do is ult onto you, and then he can usually kill you in the fear's duration. But with Olaf, Fiddle doing that is just running himself into a meat grinder. Just immediately pop your ult and then use W, and commence healing yourself through all of the pitiful damage that he does until he's dead. While you are immune to CC, the rest of your team is not, so try to not constantly force full 5v5s, where he still will have more impact than you, even if you're really ahead. The general rule of thumb is to not take fights that you can't solo carry on your own. Try keeping things split, and mostly look for 1v1s or smaller skirmishes. For your build, you'll want to start Ember Knife and build that into a Gore Drinker. Grab Ionian Boots of Lucidity, then work towards Black Cleaver and Spear Visage. Next up, grab Death's Dance and make your last item either Sterix or Guardian Angel. Now moving on to the mid lane, our only champion that we're talking about this patch, just like last patch, is Katarina. Kat is sort of the current day Darius. She's been a ridiculously strong pick for months now, with high win rates and high ban rates, yet she's pretty much entirely untouched on each patch. Despite being a melee champion, Katarina is a super strong laner. Picking another strong early pick could work, but it's also going to be a volatile lane. If Kat gets some jungle help, you'll just fall behind, and she'll roll over you for the rest of the game. So instead, we'll take a champ that takes a bit to turn on, but once it does, you will be the one to roll over Cat for the rest of the game. And that champion is Kayle. Pre-level 6, you absolutely have to concede the lane entirely, but once you do hit level 6 and unlock your ranged autos, you can go for a bit of trading. But don't think that you're immortal just because you have your ult now. Cat can still go for an all-in on you because even if your ult absorbs most of her damage, she's still got plenty of kill potential with the rest of her kit. So instead, you'll just be farming towards your 1-item power spike of Wit's End. Once you have that, then you can start to get aggressive. Wit's End is one of the most OP 1-item power spikes for the champions that can abuse it, and this is a great example of it. This alone won't make the matchup an insta-win, but as long as you go for smart trades, you'll be the one with pressure in the lane. You have faster auto attacks and magic resist on top, so Katarina can't do much to you at that point. Then once the game goes on and you complete 2 or 3 full items, as well as reaching your later forms, you become completely untouchable. If she jumps in on you, you just mow her down before she even gets close to killing you. And in teamfights, you can also use your ult on your lowest health teammate target to prevent her from ever getting a reset. Basically, you're just here to make Cat's life hell. For your items, you'll start off with a Doran's Ring, and then rush Wit's End and go for Berserker's Greaves with Riftmaker after that. If things are going well, you can go for the Medjai's and then Rabadon's and Void Staff, but if you don't go for Medjai's, feel free to opt for a Lich Bane or a Zhonya's. Due to the current jungle meta being so early game focused, it's basically mandatory that your other roles have strong early picks as well. So this has led to some pretty fast game times and the death of scaling compositions. It's a fun meta, but not the most diverse. So that brings us to today's question of the day. What meta has been your favorite? Whether it's ruled by a specific champion class like Bruiser meta, certain items like Ardent Sensor meta, or and playstyle, let me know in the comments down below, and let's get back to the video. Now moving things down to the bot lane, we got Draven as a hard counter to Tristana. Tristana is a huge bot lane bully, able to jump on and burst down most other champions in the role, but against Draven, that just does not work. He deals a lot more damage than Tristana early, so if she's jumping in, you can punish her hard. But maybe Tristana has an aggro support like Leona, and you got a Janna sitting behind tower. In those cases, the slow from Tristana's jump leaves you unable to dodge the follow-up CC from her support, and you won't be getting much peel from your basically AFK support. But with Draven, your E allows you to completely cancel Tristana's jump, and then you can zip back to safety with your W. Plenty of other AD carries can win early against Tristana, but a big issue most of them face is that her jump and high burst damage from ENR practically make her an assassin. When behind, Tristana can still usually 1v1 other marksmen if she's got her cooldowns. But with Draven's high damage and the fact that you go for Immortal Shield Bow, she will never be able to get the better of you. If she tries anything, you're just too tanky to burst down, and you can easily heal up whatever damage she does manage to do to you and turn the tables to kill her instead. For build, you'll start off with Thorn's Blade and then go for Immortal Shield Bow as fast as you can. In most games, go for Berserker's Greaves, but if the enemy team is AD heavy, you can also go for Steel Caps instead. After that, go for Collector and then your Infinity Edge. Next, grab Bloodthirster for a ridiculous amount of healing with each auto attack, and finish things off with Lord Dominic's Regards. Now for our supports, the first champion that we'll cover is Lulu. Feel free to skip this one because I've been abusing Lulu for free LP and I don't really want people to pick up on the counters, but I am contractually obligated to tell you the counters. Now you can't really out-support Lulu since she's just the best all-around champ in the class. So instead of struggling in vain to do that, you'll just bypass her strengths by playing a mage instead with Zyra. Lulu's 2 selling points are her ability to turbo buff an AD carry to do ridiculous damage, and her ability to hard shut down divers with her polymorph and ult. But what she really doesn't have an answer for is high range poke, and that is exactly what Zyra does best. Lulu does have a movement speed increase to help divers get onto poke champs, but against Zyra, it's not that simple. She's not just a poke champ. Zyra's full combo has crazy teamfight strength too, so as long as you can get that off before a diving champ brings you down, you should still do enough damage to win your team the fight. For your items, you'll start Spell Thief's Edge, and then you'll rush into Sork Shoes. And you can go for 2 different build paths from this point, a more pokey, high DPS build, or the complete one-shot build. The poke DPS build is the standard damage over time one that you see on Zyra, and for that you'll go Liandry's, Demonic Embrace, Void Staff, and Rabadon's. But for the burst build, go Luden's, Void Staff, Medjai's, and Rabadon's. If you can't maintain Medjai stacks, you can also go Horizon Focus instead. Just note that this is a very expensive build for a support, and you'll likely have to farm lanes and have the game go long to reach this full build. And finishing off our list, we have Zilean as a pick into Seraphine. This isn't so much a hard counter to Seraphine, as much as it is you just answering her scaling with scaling of your own. Zilean's only real weak point in the game is his laning phase. Seraphine has decent trading in lane, but doesn't have a lot of kill pressure. Basically, you're just guaranteed to go neutral or at least make it through the lane phase without feeding. And once out of lane, Seraphine's teamfight presence is of course huge, but she struggles with less allies nearby. As Zilean, the reverse is true. While Seraphine provides more with more champs around, you're focused on enabling a single champ. Your goal is to take smaller skill skirmishes where you can speed up a bruiser or assassin to run her down and take her out. And while she undoubtedly has a huge influence in 5v5s, in some cases you can match and even outdo her. If you have an AoE engaged champion like Malphite or a Mumu, you can speed them up so that they can land a huge ult, and then follow that up with a double bomb of your own to layer CC on top. For items, you'll want to go Relic Shield and then rush Lucidity Boots, and then go for Shurelya's for your Mythic and Cosmic Drive. If you can't tell, you really want a lot of ability haste on Zilean. Since we recommend Aerie, not Guardian, because it's a low threat lane, you can apply shields with your E. So with that in mind, your next item should be either Ardent Censer or Staff of Flowing Water. It'd be nice if you could build both, but your last item slot is for Vigilant Wardstone still. The ability haste is nice, but more importantly, it allows you to continue placing control wards. And that'll conclude our latest episode of Counter Picks. Really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure that you're subbed to the channel so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember to let me know your favorite meta in the comments down below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box down there too. Can't wait to see you back in the next video, but until then, best of luck on the Rift, stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time.